Anshuman, right? And I used to take lectures of environment ecology in different cities of India since last 8 to 10 years. And it is my privilege that I am getting the opportunity to serve you because you all are honorable. I should use the tone because I am taking fees of my lectures, so I can consider you all as customer of mine, and I have a lot of respect for you. Okay. By the way, what is your experience about this examination? How many are freshers? Completely fresher. Okay. All. So now it looks like a very easy task for me to deceive you in this subject. Okay. No, not at all. Look, as far as this subject of environment ecology is concerned, instead of it, the title of this session would be a bit longer, I can say statement, because environment and ecology is just one portion of this entire task. Apart from it, we have to talk about various environmental issues and issues related to our surrounding, related with nature in this particular session. So a very dynamic session I'm going to present before you, and I urge that you all should show, or I can say you all need to present your sense of I can say interest in the entire discussion procedure, so that a very productive discussion would be realizes for me also as well as for you also, right? Okay, before initiating the very formal discussion about contents of this particular subject, I need to make you all familiar about that required strategy, which would be very helpful for you as far as your performance in this examination is concerned. Look, you all are gathered here for a competitive examination, right? And there are two different ways to, I can say, approach different examinations which you had, I can say, face in your previous life experience also. One type of examination is like academics examination, and the very syllabus or the, I can say, nature of questions in those academic examinations is very monotonous, right? They are very fixed in their pattern, in their nature. Academic examination means I'm talking about your schooling examination, the examination of your UGs or PGs. But when you look at competitive examination, especially the exam for which you all are looking for, civil services examination, you should be very clear in your thought that this examination is not the examination of knowledge. Knowledge is just a mean to check your personality, that whether you can serve your public in a better manner or not. Because it is our, I can say, misconception about this examination that this exam is for knowledgeable persons, meritorious candidates, but actually it is not the reality. This examination, and especially the portion of general studies, demand a very elegant management skill of aspirants. Without following a proper management strategy, it become a very difficult task for you guys to handle this entire GS portion in your examination. And management strategy means what? Management strategy means you should have a crystal clear understanding about the nature of subject. You should have a very clear understanding about the nature of questions which has been asked by UPSC in previous days and which shall be asked by UPSC in coming future. And how you can develop your sense about these nature of questions? By developing your understanding, or I can say over PYQs, right? And those PYQs and prescribed syllabus of UPSC are two important guides for you guys, right? And by referring those PYQs and prescribed syllabus of UPSC, you can develop your own organic way or method to prepare different subjects of the general studies. It is not like copy and paste type of thing, right? So as far as general studies, as far as environment ecology portion of this GS segment is concerned, I can say various PYQs and prescribed syllabus of UPSC actually guide us to frame a proper syllabus of this particular subject. Where is note? Okay. Thank you. So, as I was saying that, as far as this subject is concerned, we need to frame a proper syllabus. Syllabus means I am going to sketch the very boundary which we should not violate while preparing this subject in, I can say, future course of time. If you look at the official syllabus of this subject prescribed by UPSC, that official syllabus actually, you can say, is about few words. That syllabus says कि aspirants needs to prepare for various environmental issues and contemporary developments. That's all. But this statement can be considered as a very vague type of presentation, especially for those aspirants who started their preparation. So what I'm trying to do, I should make that a very unclear statement more and more simplify for you, so that you can, I can say, develop your own sense as far as various tasks are concerned. The entire syllabus of this subject can be, I can say, divided into four different, I can say, sections, or I can say four different segments, right? And every segment consists so many interrelated topics. What are those four segments? Look, first segment with which we can start today's, I can say, lecture is the very theoretical, I can say, dimension having title known as what? Ecology. It is purely a theoretical segment. Theoretical means what? You need to be familiar about various bookish contents, theoretical contents in this particular segment. And I can say that the very discussion of this first segment makes an elegant foundation for our next journey in this particular, I can say, subject. So very discussion of first segment will make you all very comfortable for discussing other three segments of this syllabus. And next segment of this syllabus is of biodiversity, right? Then we will talk about major environmental, I can say, challenges or issues of contemporary relevance. Challenges of contemporary relevance. Contemporary relevance. And under this third segment, we have to talk about a very popular issues like climate change, global warming, then the subject of ozone depletion, the problem of land degradation, and the subject of acid rain. But I must be very, very clear in my thought that as far as this third segment is concerned, right? In this third segment, around 80% allocated time for this third segment is going to be dedicated over these two issues, climate change and global warming. And I can say the rest three issues are actually the subset of this broader subject. They are directly or indirectly related with these two major issues known as climate change and global warming. And the very proper understanding about these two, I can say, problems will make you all very, very comfortable for dealing various other topics of different subjects, such as when you will read about the subject of disaster, another subject of your GS paper 3, disaster and disaster management. So the very understanding about climate change mechanism will assist you for understanding the current pattern of so many natural disasters like flood, drought, cyclones, right? Not only for the subject of disaster management, the very understanding about the mechanism of these problems will also assist you to develop your own understanding about various geographical phenomenon which you will read in the subject of geography, such as, again I must say, El Nino, La Nina, right? Type of I can say subjects or concept. That's why I can say the most dominant segment of this entire syllabus is third segment, right? And after it, we will talk about the last or fourth segment of your syllabus, and this fourth segment would be of environmental pollution. What? Environmental pollution. And under it we shall take up various issues related to pollution, such as air pollution, water pollution, the subject of or the problem of solid waste. Under solid waste we will talk about various related issues like e-waste, plastic waste. All these dimensions are the subset of this broader term known as solid waste, right? I should write here the problem of e-waste, the problem of plastic waste, and the problem of, I can say, municipal solid waste. All these are related aspect of this broader term known as solid waste. These are three major dimensions of environmental pollutions. Apart from these three dimensions, I will provide you all very handout about few basic, I can say, issues related to pollution, but I will take up those topics also in my discussion. And those secondary dimensions related to pollutions are, related to the problem of pollution are, the problem of noise pollution, at the problem of thermal pollution, and last one is the problem of light pollution. The problem of light pollution, right? But majority time of our discussion should be dedicated upon these initial three dimensions of pollution, namely air pollution, water pollution, and solid waste. Because from these three topics, UPSC used to raise question in a very frequent manner. So it is all about the very, I can say, structure or sketch of your syllabus as far as this subject is concerned. I must say that you need not to be, I can say, confused about the fact that this syllabus looks like a very limited or a very brief syllabus. The term which I wrote here is only the title of segments. Under these segments, there are so many issues which we have to discuss, right? So this is the syllabus, and it was the first aspect of our introductory discussion. Now I should discuss the another required, I can say, approach for this subject, which you need to develop in your preparation days. As far as this first segment is concerned, which is about ecology, as I said, it is purely a theoretical segment, but rest three segments of this particular syllabus are purely dynamic. The scope of theoretical discussion in these segments is very, very limited. We have to talk about various contemporary issues, which shall be full of current affair content, various initiatives which has been taken at national or international levels, and in the name of initiatives we will talk about government policies, government rules, regulations. We have to talk about various international agencies, their functions, their norms. So until and unless you are following a very dynamic strategy for dealing these three segments, it becomes very, very tough for you to tackle these three segments only by reading any specific book. It will not help you, and I am sending this message to all in my very first lecture. So as a faculty, what would be my role? My role would be to make you all very, very familiar with these segments, contents of these segments. I will also take up some major informations or issues of current affair, which has been, you can say, occurred so far, but your journey will not stop here only. Even after accomplishment of this batch, you need to update your content with current affair material or informations. And without current affair, without referring current affair, you cannot prepare this subject at any cost. If you are in this misconception that you can prepare this entire subject only by reading any specific book, so you are in a very, very wrong direction. The role of book is very limited in this subject, or I can say in entire GS paper 3. The role of book is only for satisfying just 25 to 30% requirement of your syllabus. The rest 70% requirement of syllabus can be, I can say, tackled with the help of current affair contents. So it is my, I can say, very sincere advice as well as request for you guys to please refer current affair by considering it as one subject of your GS. You need to provide that approach to current affair which you generally provide for other conventional subjects like polity, history, geography. You need to consider current affair as one subject of your general studies. And I don't know what is the manner of your reading as far as current affair contents are concerned, but I must suggest that it should be your own decision that from which material you should read contents of current affair. It should not be like that कि person X is referring material X for current affair. That's why I should also refer that same material. It should not be your take. Because as of now, various authentic current affair related magazines and materials are available in our market. They are in hard copy format also, as well as they are in PDF format also. You just need to take this decision कि with which current affair material you are able to connect yourself in a very proper manner. Because every material has its own language. And it is not possible for a single aspirant that aspirant would be comfortable in all different languages of different materials. It is impossible. So you need to go for this experiment during your initial days of preparation. You just need to experiment 4 to 5 different current affair materials and try to develop your own sense key informations written in which materials are I can say very easier for you to grasp. And then you have to take decision ki you need to carry that material only, right? Because, and it is a very practical suggestion I am giving to all of you. What happens in your general life or general preparation, I can say experience, you means I'm talking about aspirants. They start their preparation of current affair, let's say by referring material A, right? For next 2 to 3 months, they used to follow that material A for current affair. But let's say after 3 months, they took a tour, or they take a tour for, let's say, Delhi, and they came in interaction with another aspirant who used to prepare by residing in Delhi only. And while making interaction with that person, you came to know that that person of Delhi is referring current affair material B. So now a very sense of inferiority complex would start developing in your mindset. Since that student is studying while residing in Delhi, he used to take lectures of very sophisticated institutions. And if that aspirant is reading current affair from material B, then I should also refer material B. This sense will start developing in mindset of those aspirants who used to prepare while residing in their own city. So now what happened? Instead of A, now you will start referring material B after 3 to 4 months of your journey. Now for next few months, you start, I can say, analyzing current affair with the help of material B. But again, what happened? Let's say after some months, you came in connection with a particular selected candidate of this examination. And in that discussion procedure, you raised question before him that with which material he used to follow or he used to read current affair. And let's say, think hypothetically that he said that he used to read material C for current affair. Now again, that inferiority complex start developing in your mind, since that person is selected candidate and he was referring material C for current affair, so there must be some special in material C. So I should also start my preparation or my journey with material C only. But what is happening in this entire journey? You are not following any sustainable or stable way for current affair. You keep on changing that material source, and if you will change your material source for any subject very frequently, you cannot be, I can say, very comfortable with language of any particular material. And if you are not becoming very comfortable with language, written language of material, it would not be possible for you to develop your understanding about concept, right? So that's why it is my suggestion कि this is your initial days of preparation. You can go for experiment for by referring 4 to 5 different current affair materials for few days, and then you need to take your own call. You have to follow which particular current affair material. Believe me, this process will help you a lot in your preparation journey, right? It is all about syllabus and some suggestions regarding current affair. One more suggestion I would like to present. It is a very usual query for aspirants ki which book, standard book, they need to refer for a particular subject. And I can think that this query would be there in your mind also for this subject, ki which standard book needs to be followed. But before providing this suggestion, again I am repeating my belief here. The role of book in this subject is just 30%. So you should not be in this dilemma ki only by reading book you will achieve your target in this particular subject. But despite of it, if I have to suggest few, I can say, standard books for this subject, you can refer one very elegantly articulated book of Environment Ecology by Majid Hussain, right? Or you can refer Environment Ecology book by written by I can say a very well-known institution of Shankar IAS, right? Environment Ecology of Shankar, Environment Ecology book of Shankar IAS, right? Or you can refer Environment Ecology book written by a South Indian professor. His name is K. Venkat Raghavan, right? These K. Venkat Raghavan. These are very specific study materials of environment ecology, which has been developed by looking at the requirement of your civil services examination, right? So it is up to you ki you are following which contents. I am not imposing any particular reference ki you need to go through that material only. Decision has to be taken by you. But along with it, I must say ki the very content which we will prepare in our classroom discussion would also be a very, very sufficient guide for all of you. And along with that class note, you just need to refer current affair materials. It would be a very, very sufficient, I can say, stuff for you as far as this subject is concerned. So these are from various suggestions, various, I can say, informations related to introductory aspect of this subject. Now we are all set to start the very formal discussion of the very first segment, which is this segment of ecology. For next few minutes, you should not write anything, just focus over verbal discussion and demonstration. I can start my discussion, or I can initiate my discussion about this term ecology by referring one very common term of our day-to-day lifestyle, and that is the notion of what? Environment. How many among of you are witnessing this term environment for the first time in their life? I should say that no one would be. Huh? So, as per your intellect, what this term environment would be? What is your take about this term? What is environment? Surrounding. Huh? Surrounding around us. Now, if you look at that term surrounding, as he said, ki environment means what? Surrounding around us. So, surrounding means what? Various elements which are affecting our lifestyle. These walls, for me, this crowd, for me, the entire, I can say, climate of this city. In fact, this city, this locality, this entire state of Odisha, this entire country, all these elements can be considered as surrounding for a particular entity or for a particular person. I mean to say ki this term which is known as surrounding is a very vague term. It is a very vague term. It is not clearly defined what surrounding means, right? It is totally dependent upon the mental perception of a particular person ki he is considering this term surrounding in which manner. If a person is saying ki this classroom is surrounding for me, he is also correct on his part. And if another person is saying ki this entire city is surrounding of mine, he is also correct on his part. So it is not possible to provide a very crystal clear boundary to this term known as surrounding. But what another sense we need to follow here, ki it is very, very true fact, universally true fact that various elements of surrounding used to influence the life form of a particular, I can say, living entity. That living entity may be a human being, may be any animal, it may be bird, it may be any other living entity. Because a living entity feel various types of requirements for sustaining its own life. We can approach this term requirement of life in multiple ways. For one type of requirement is appetite. Another type of requirement is to make interaction with, let's say, colleagues. Third type of requirement is what? Respirations. So many different requirements which actually support the life of a particular living entity, right? And for satisfying all these different types of requirement, a living entity used to interact with its surrounding or used to interact with different elements of its surrounding. Let's say ki here I'm making this discussion. So in the process of discussion, I am actually interacting with you guys. Here I'm standing over this floor. So this floor is what? It is a non-living type of component, and I am using this floor for this purpose. It means that I am interacting with it. For respiration, I am using the very space of air. So this space of air, this floor, you all are surrounding for me, right? So in this entire subject of ecology, we have to talk about all those different mechanisms with the help of which a particular entity, living entity, used to interact with its surrounding. We have to talk about this interaction of a living entity with its own surrounding. This is the crux of this first segment, right? But it is not possible to make a very proper discussion about this subject only by referring this vague term of surrounding, because this term does not have any boundary. And one more thing I would like to suggest all of you. Look, you should not follow the very sophisticated mechanism in this classroom discussion, because the last mile purpose of this discussion would be that ki whatever content I am sharing before you, you should internalize that concept, and for it healthy communication should be there, and language is one medium of Communications. So you should not be very, very sophisticated ki you need to communicate with me in English only, right? If you are feeling very, very comfortable in Hindi, you can use those Hindi terms, right? There is no any foundation, because our last mile purpose would be what? Healthy communication, right? But you need to forgive me because I don't know Odia, so there is no any so there is no any scope of making that in discussion with me in that language. But I should learn few words of Odia in that entire mechanism of my discussion, right. So please feel that sense of comfort, ठीक है? ऐसा कुछ नहीं कि बहुत sophisticated discussion हो रहा है, we are in Harvard University type of thing, huh? So if we try to follow the practical norm, it will be helpful for us, right? Okay, so as I was saying कि the entire purpose of this first segment, which is known as ecology, to talk about different manners of mechanism of interaction of a particular living entity with its own surrounding. So how we can provide a very clear boundary to this vague term surrounding, this is our first task. Look, if I have to provide the very structure of this term surrounding, or I can say environment, I can say various elements of our surrounding or environment can be divided into two parts, huh? Living and what? Non-living. Great, you know. Good. Living means what? Those forms in which there is a life, right? And as far as non-living components are concerned, the three most important non-living elements of our surrounding are what? Space of air, soil, and I can say water. These are the three most dominant non-living elements of our surrounding, right? And as far as the very space of all these three elements are concerned, space of these three elements used to be studied or used to be discussed in form of a particular terminology. For example, if we talk about the space of air around us, for that space we use the notion of what? For that space we use the notion of atmosphere. If you talk about the space of water not only on the surface of earth, above the surface of earth, below the surface of earth, as well as on the surface of earth, all that space of water is known as what? Hydrosphere. Space of water is known as what? Hydrosphere. And if we talk about the space of soil, instead of soil, if I use another term, an umbrella term, the space of physical earth, right? Earth's surface I am talking about. So that entire space of earth is known as geosphere. And geosphere means what? Surface of earth and below the surface of earth. I'm considering entire earth as what? Geosphere. But if you talk about the upper portion of that earth, which is known as crust in our geography discussion, that upper portion of, or you can say the surface portion of earth, is actually known as lithosphere. What? Lithosphere. So what I'm doing here, I'm actually providing a proper structure to these three most dominant non-living components of our surrounding. And if you want, you can write down few informations about these terms. Please, we can start with this point only. Please write. Environment refers to surrounding around us surrounding around us, full stop. The entire surrounding can be broadly divided into composition of composition of this is my face.
No, sir.
Composition of living and non-living elements, full stop. From next line, three most important non-living elements which has their wider influence upon life related activities of living entities are ARER dash water, air and soil. From next line, the space of air above the surface of earth is known as atmosphere, full stop. Now you have to answer my question. That is question for you. Can you differentiate the two terms of air and wind? Question is for you. Or both terms are synonyms of each other? मेरा डायरेक्शन इधर था ना. Is there any difference between these two terms, air and wind? Different. What is that difference? Moving air is known as what? Wind, right? Either vertically or horizontally. Vertical movement, we also use another notion of current, air current, right? Please continue. From next line, the space of water on the surface of earth, below the surface of earth, as well as above the surface of earth, is known as hydrosphere, hydrosphere, full stop. And continue in that same line. after full stop. That part of hydrosphere, where water is present in ice form, ice form means I'm talking about solid form. Ice form, in bracket solid form, is known as cryosphere, cryosphere. For example, glaciers. Example of cryosphere would be what? Glaciers. Again from next line. The entire space of Earth, in bracket surface of Earth as well as inner, inner portion of Earth, bracket close, is known as geosphere, full stop. The upper surface of Earth, is known as lithosphere, Wait. So what we learned so far, different living elements used to survive in environment and various other elements of that same environment used to affect the life form of that living entity. As I said, our purpose of this discussion is to talk about the very mechanism of that interaction. How various elements of surrounding put their influence upon the life form of a living entity. It is our interest of entire discussion. So now we need to follow one particular, I can say, approach here. Since as far as the term environment is concerned, it does not have any fixed boundary. If you try, let's say consider one portion of environment, let's say atmosphere, right? So there is no any fixed boundary of atmosphere. The very immediate portion above my head is also the part of atmosphere, and if you go into the very zone of, let's say, troposphere, is also the part of atmosphere. But what we should consider here, that is it possible to consider the survival of a living entity in every corner of this particular environment? Not possible. The life is possible only within a certain, I can say, defined limit of environment. And environment means what? Every component of environment I'm talking about, whether it is atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, or whatever it is. We cannot imagine the presence of life up to any limit of all these different portions of environment. It is not possible at all. Researchers used to say that the possibility of life is only up to the limit of 10 kilometers towards atmosphere. But atmosphere has its presence even beyond 10 kilometers, but life is not possible beyond that limit. Similarly, if you talk about the possibility of life below the surface of Earth, according to researchers, the possibility of life is, I am talking about that particular portion of ocean and related stuff, that possibility is only up to the limit of 6 to 7 miles, right? So, but the zone beyond that 6 to 7 mile is also the part of hydrosphere and environment. So what approach we should follow? That we need to restrict ourselves only within that portion of environment where life is possible. Why we need to restrict ourselves only within that portion where life is possible? Because try to imagine hypothetically that you are considering over a particular portion where life is not there. Would it be possible for you to make that discussion ki what is the impact of surrounding over life? It is not possible for us to make this type of discussion for that location where life is not possible. That's why I'm considering only that portion of environment where there is possibility of life. And this portion of environment is known as biosphere. What? Biosphere. Biosphere is what? Life supporting part or portion of environment. Biosphere has its presence within atmosphere also up to a certain limit. Biosphere has its presence within hydrosphere also up to a certain limit, as well as biosphere has its presence over the surface of earth also, that is known as lithosphere, right? But you cannot say ki entire environment is biosphere. You cannot say, right? So now what I am doing, I am trying to clarify my own task. We started our discussion with a very general or vague notion of environment. Now I am trying to define that particular task. Now I switched over from environment to biosphere, right? So please start writing from next line. In order to analyze the manner of influence of various surrounding elements over a living entity, comma, we need to restrict ourselves only within that portion of environment where life is possible, full stop, where life is possible. This life supporting part of environment, is known as biosphere, full stop. We can, full stop and continue, we can imagine we can imagine the presence of biosphere, up to a certain limit of atmosphere, hydrosphere, and geosphere. Full stop. So if you want, you can draw this particular diagram. These three different circles are representing three major space of non-living components, namely atmosphere, hydrosphere, and geosphere. And the common area occupied by all these three circles, shaded in pink line, or shaded with pink lines or in pink color, this common occupied area is a representation of which sphere? Biosphere. Right? Now please again hold on for a while. Now try to think about biosphere. What is the purpose of our discussion? What task we have to fulfill? Our main purpose is to analyze the manner of influence. You should not forget this tagline of first segment. Our task of analysis here is to read or to analyze the manner of influence of various surrounding elements over a particular life form, right? And for this discussion, now we should restrict ourselves only within the limit of biosphere. Is it okay for all of you? But biosphere is that particular, you can say, sphere or space which is I can say which is not very universal in terms of conditions, in terms of I can say the presence of life forms. Within this biosphere, there is presence of ocean, there is presence of grassland, there is presence of river system, and if we look at all these different regions which are the part of biosphere, they have their own character. They have their own characters. The very living entity which used to reside in grassland has its own certain set of requirement. And if we talk about the other living entity which is actually surviving within river, has its own different type of requirements. So as far as the requirement of life form is concerned, or as far as the influence of surrounding over life form is concerned, we cannot conduct one go analysis for entire biosphere. We cannot conduct. Why we cannot conduct? Because biosphere is full of, you can say, full of fluctuations. Different regions are having different conditions. Living entities of different regions have their different types of demand, different types of, you can say, their lifestyle. So we cannot make an straightforward conclusion or a straightforward comment for requirement of lifestyle for entire biosphere. We cannot make an straightforward conclusion here. So what we need to do? We need to pick up a particular sample of biosphere for our analysis. Now, what would be that sample? It depends upon us. That sample may be grassland, it may be forest, it may be desert. And now, after considering that sample, we should conduct a subjective analysis only for that sample. What is the condition of that sample? Which type of life exists in that sample? What is the requirement of life form for that particular considered sample? Then after we would consider another sample. So what I am trying to convey here, we need to follow a very subjective approach. It is not possible to conduct a straightforward discussion for entire biosphere in one go. Not possible. That's why I am considering what should be manner of our discussion or what should be manner of our analysis. We need to go with different samples, right? And these different samples are treated as ecosystem. What? Ecosystem. Now, if let's say if you imagine that you have to talk about grassland, try to imagine this term, grassland. So the moment when you are considering grassland, all other spaces or all other regions of biosphere has been gone out of your mind. Now your focus is only for that area which satisfy the character of grassland. बायोस्फीयर में रिवर भी है, ओशियन भी है, बहुत सारी चीजें. बट जैसे ही आपने ग्रासलैंड सैंपल को कंसिडर किया, एक आपके जहन में हाइपोथेटिकल बाउंड्री बन रही है कि you will consider only that portion of biosphere which is actually a grassland. And that grassland is a sample. And that sample is treated as ecosystem. It means, how we can define that term ecosystem? Look, in my entire discussion of this subject, I will not refer any bookish definition. By developing our own thought process about different concepts, in class only we will try to derive our own definition, right? So what I said, that this particular sample of biosphere is known as or is treated as ecosystem, and this ecosystem is having its own what? Boundary. Every ecosystem has its own boundary. Look, boundary does not mean ki physical boundary, demarcation. Here I am talking about our mental construct. An imaginary boundary is being drawn when we are talking about different samples of this particular biosphere. And what is the character of all these different samples which are known as ecosystem? First character ki they have their own boundary. And within that boundary or within that ecosystem, there is presence of living component as well as non-living component. And various living components, I'm not talking about non-living, I'm talking about living, because life is possible only for living components, na? So what various living components are doing within ecosystem? In order to survive their own life, those living components are trying to interact with all other elements of that ecosystem. All other elements means what? Other living as well as non-living. If a tiger is feeding a particular rabbit, so tiger is interacting with that living component. And if a tiger is making its own residence, let's say, over the surface of earth, that is non-living component, so tiger is interacting with that non-living component also. So what is the second character of every ecosystem? What is second character? Every ecosystem has you can say two components, living and non-living, and living components are actually interacting with other components of that ecosystem. This interaction represent that a function is being performed in ecosystem. This interaction can be considered as a type of what? Function. That's why every ecosystem is also known as a functional unit of biosphere, right? So let's try to sum up the very summary of entire discussion which we have been made so far. I initiated my discussion from a very umbrella term known as environment. Consider this entire building as environment, right? And there are 3 floors of this particular building. Let's say 3 floors, right? So now I am considering the first floor as biosphere. Rest 2 floors has been excluded from our mental construct. Think hypothetically कि the possibility of life is only within the boundary of first floor. That's why other 2 floors has been excluded. They have been excluded from our mental construct. This first floor is biosphere, huh? And now in this first floor there are different rooms. Room 1, room 2, room 3 cabin. Consider all these rooms as different ecosystems. This is grassland, this is ocean, this is lake, right? And within that room, every room, there is presence of living component and air, light. These are what? Non-living component. And what these living components are doing here? In order to survive, in order to satisfy their own purpose, since you are gathered here for taking knowledge of a particular subject, consider it as your function, consider it as your ambition. So in order to fulfill this ambition, you living components are actually interacting with each other. And I have also my ambition. What is my purpose? To read, to study ecology from you. No, to take dhan from you. Huh? This is my purpose. Huh? Hesitate किस बात का होना है? जो बात है सो बोलो. बच्चे थोड़ी हो तुम लोग, हाँ? सब जानते हो कि मैं किस लिए आया हूँ यहाँ पे. अब मैं क्या, जो भी आएगा वो इसीलिए आएगा ना यहाँ पे. So, in order to survive, in order to satisfy my own purpose, I am also interacting with you guys, right? These all are the characters of given ecosystem. So now onwards, our entire discussion shall be focused over one term that is known as ecosystem. Please write definition. Please put heading ecosystem. It is a smallest unit. It is a smallest unit oblique sample. It is the smallest unit oblique sample of biosphere in which there is presence of living and non-living components, presence of living and non-living components, and don't put full stop. and living and non-living components, and living components used to interact, and living components used to interact, living components used to interact with other living and non-living components, other living and non-living components for satisfying their own life related requirements, for satisfying their own life related requirements. Full stop. Interact with other living and non-living components. Right? Any doubt?
That was being
Not used. I did not pronounce used to. I say that they used to interact. I am talking about the very general lifestyle activity of a particular entity, right? Wait. You should write few examples here also. For example, lake, grassland, forest, etc. Now, along with it, we should also talk about categorization of different ecosystems. Look, this categorization can be discussed in two different manners, right? First manner of categorization of different ecosystem is the very mechanism of their evolution, how they evolved or how they developed, right? If a particular ecosystem has been evolved naturally, right? Naturally means without any human intervention. That type of ecosystem is known as natural ecosystem. For example, river, ocean, these are the deserts, these are the example of natural ecosystem. And we can also consider so many different ecosystems which has been evolved due to human intervention or out of human intervention, or you can say out of human effort. For example, we can consider the very case of farmland. What? Farmland. Let's say rice field. So this rice field is an example of ecosystem. How we can justify this information? Having its boundary, and living and non-living components used to reside there, right? But what is the mechanism of evolution of that rice field? Few times before, farmer would have applied seeds. Then farmer is practicing the very function of irrigation, application of pesticides. All these are different types of human activities. And due to these different types of human activities, evolution of that rice field is taking place, right? That's why this example of rice field or farmland can be considered as human-made or man-made ecosystem or artificial ecosystem. Similarly, we can consider the case of aquarium. Look, it is not necessary that we need to approach this term ecosystem only in natural form. No, it depends upon us. We can develop a particular ecosystem with our own effort. And classic example is this aquarium. Has its own boundary, and within that boundary, living and non-living components are residing there. Fish is living, water is non-living, light is non-living. So on the basis of this evolution mechanism, we can talk about two types of ecosystem. Please put heading, types of ecosystem. Types of ecosystem dash and write down first, and please write that heading on the basis of evolution mechanism of evolution, sorry, on the basis of mechanism of evolution, comma, there are two types of ecosystem. There are two types of ecosystem dash first. Two types of ecosystem dash first. Natural ecosystem, and what is natural ecosystem? Which has been evolved naturally. Which has been evolved naturally. For example, ocean, river. For example, ocean, river. And second one is artificial or man-made ecosystem. Second one is artificial or man-made ecosystem. Which has been evolved under the influence of human intervention, for example, aquarium, farmland, zoological gardens, zoo, etc. Now by changing paragraph, please write every ecosystem satisfy following character. Every ecosystem satisfy following character. First, having its own defined structure. Second, having its own boundary. Third, every ecosystem is a functional unit. Every ecosystem is a functional unit. And fourth one, every ecosystem is an open system. Every ecosystem is an open system. What is the meaning of this term open system? Look, open system means that system in which energy is coming from any external source, right? And there is possibility of movement of energy towards that ecosystem and outside that ecosystem. That character is the character of an open system, right? So what is the case for general ecosystem? If we talk about general natural ecosystems, so for all such general natural ecosystem, the ultimate source of energy is sun, and it's sunlight. So sunlight energy got introduced within ecosystem, and then we will talk about it, this dimension, in a very depth manner. And then what happens actually, that same energy actually revert back from ecosystem towards sun, but form of energy keeps on changing. So what is happening here? There is possibility of introduction of energy from outside entity towards that ecosystem, and again movement of energy, you can say, from that ecosystem towards that external source. This is known as the notion of open system. You can explain that term in bracket, possibility of transfer of energy, possibility of transfer of energy between ecosystem and external source, between ecosystem and external source of that energy. Now, based on all these contents which we have gathered so far regarding ecosystem, now we can frame another definition for this same term known as ecosystem. And what would be that another definition? That second definition, which I am going to present before you, consists various informations regarding these characters, right? So by considering all these characters of ecosystem, how we can define this term? Please write down that another definition. By considering, please start writing, by considering above mentioned characters, by considering above mentioned characters of an ecosystem, by considering above mentioned characters of an ecosystem, comma, we can say that ecosystem is a functional and a structural unit of biosphere where various living and non-living components, where various living and non-living components interact with each other. Is it okay for all of you? Any doubt so far? Any doubt? Should I proceed? Okay. Again, please drop your pen and focus over this demonstration. Now I'm going to conduct an elaborate discussion about those two most important characters of an ecosystem. As you written that every ecosystem is a functional unit. So obvious query would be ki what is that function of ecosystem? And then as you written also that every ecosystem is a structural unit. So what is that structure of ecosystem? Before taking up discussion about these two, I can say, dimensions, I should urge that you need to develop your skill of application of bookish or I can say theoretical informations. Application means what? You need to apply that information in your day-to-day life. Because I can figure out so many I can say previously asked question of UPSC in your civil services examination of your CSE, which are totally based on this very character of application. And it is the usual habit of UPSC to not raise question directly from the bookish theory, but those questions demand your application skill, right? So how we can develop this skill? Time to time, I will try to present few questions based on application, and you have to take a call. You have to answer those questions. Let's say, based on all these basic informations regarding ecosystem, if I raise this question, can you consider this glass of water as an example of ecosystem or not? What is your answer first? It is ecosystem. Why? Huh? Is he correct? Okay, it is a boundary, and as he said, it consists non-living components. So what you think, whether he is correct or incorrect? He is correct. What is your information? What is your opinion? That is correct. Anyone who says ki no, he is not correct. Do you think? Yes. Yes. Why? Interaction happening between living? Not happening. Okay. So if interaction is not happening between living and non-living within very physical space acquired by this glass, it means ki you want to say ki there is no any presence of living component.
What does mean interaction? So what does mean in that terms? What means interaction is not mean that someone is coming and interacting with it. It means that influence was
Okay.
in the definition.
So do you think there is presence of a living component?
Maybe what?
Maybe.
So what?
अच्छा, water is a living component.
Not living component.
क्या चाहते हो मुझे? अच्छा, ये बताओ मुझे कैसा पानी पिलाना चाहते हो?
We don't see the environment also, and there are so many things that.
Try to focus over this glass only, na? Because this question is for glass. So this glass which consists water. अब तो मुझे डर लग रहा है कि प्योर वाटर कहूँ या इसे कैसा कहूँ. अब तुम लोग जबरदस्ती इसमें लिविंग कंपोनेंट को ला रहे हो. This is the art of application. Yes. Water and glass. Water in pure form H2O, hydrogen and oxygen. These are non-living components, na? And glass, again non-living. There is no any presence of living component. And if there is no any presence of living component, that given sample cannot classify the very criteria of ecosystem, because ecosystem consists living as well as non-living component. अब जबरदस्ती इसमें living component ला रहे हो यार.
Actually, in air also there are so many
No.
types that that winds the living air.
The very term which you are using, wind means air. Air consists in pure ideal sense. Air consists various type of organic compounds, inorganic compounds, right? So all these are the example of non-living components, na. So the very glass means what? The glass of water. अगर ये statement है, तो देखो होता क्या है ना कि आपके प्रीलिम्स के ज्यादातर क्वेश्चंस गलत क्यों होते हैं? क्योंकि गिवन स्टेटमेंट के अकॉर्डिंग आप चलने की कोशिश नहीं करते हो. You just need to restrict yourself within the condition which has been mentioned in that question. Question just saying कि it is a glass of water, that's all. तो water का मतलब H2O ही तो मानोगे ना. And glass of means what? It is again a non-living component. Although it is having its boundary, no problem. But since there is no any presence of living component, that's why we cannot treat it as an example of ecosystems. But if I put one bacteria, then it will be treated as ecosystem. Is it okay?
I mean to that.
You mean to that? Any doubt? Huh? Chalo. Now we should talk about a structure and function of ecosystem, right? Initially I am taking up this dimension, is structure of ecosystem. Please put heading. Structure of ecosystem. And write down every ecosystem has two components. First, living components. Living, or they are also known as biotic component, and abiotic component or non-living components. Let's start. Then again you should put next subheading, a structure of biotic components. Structure of biotic components of an ecosystem. And write down all biotic components of a given ecosystem. All biotic components of a given ecosystem can be arranged in form of various groupings comma, which is as follow. First grouping, and write down individual individual organism. First one is of individual organism. And write down, on the basis of genetic structure, comma, every biotic component is unique full stop, unique full stop. It means that on the basis of genetic structure, a particular biotic component or individual organism, a particular biotic component is different from all other biotic components of that given ecosystem. This is the first, you can say, stage of grouping, right? Individual organism. Let's say consider this classroom as an ecosystem, and we all are different biotic components. So what this first stage is saying, on the basis of genetic structure, every biotic component is unique, right? Unique means what? Different from all other biotic components, right? So you can provide uniqueness to a biotic component by referring its genetic structure. Now I'm further, I can say, moving in this very discussion of grouping, and now I should consider the second stage of grouping, and this second stage of grouping is known as species. Second one is species. Now what this term species means, I can say it is a very usual term of our day-to-day lifestyle. We use this term in various contexts. So what this term species means, please write definition. Group of those organisms which has identical physical morphology and they should be capable for interbreeding. They should be capable for interbreeding. They should be capable for interbreeding. So what this term species means? It is the group of those organisms who have identical morphology and they are capable for interbreeding. So this group is known as a species, right? Now again, related with this particular grouping of species, we should talk about another level of grouping, and this is known as population. What? population. What it means, please write down. Total number of organisms of a particular species, who reside together at a particular location, Now just wait for a while and let's have a discussion about these two terms. Population means what? The number of organisms of a particular species who are residing together at a particular location. It means that whenever we want to talk about that term known as population, it is the usual, I can say, process to make discussion about population in context of a particular location. If you try to make discussion regarding population of anything without taking into account the context of a location, it would not possible for you to conduct that discussion. How? Let's say I'm raising the question, what is the population of? I'm silent. What is the population of? Let's say, what is the population of human being? Abhi bhi main silent. Would it be able to give answer of this question? Now, what would be your counter question? कि population किस जगह की? कहाँ की बात कर रहे हो? Now, I should add few informations कि what is the population of human being of, let's say, India. Then you would be in condition to give answer of this question. What is the population of Bhubaneswar? So the very discussion about this term population is a location specific discussion, right? Now as you write that population means total number of members of a particular species who are residing together at a particular location. It means ki it is very, very possible that, let's say, these are two different locations, L1 and L2. It is possible ki one specific member of a particular species is residing at this location and another member of that same species is residing at this location, L2. ये possible हो सकता है. But you cannot count this member in the population of L2 for that species. The species is same. And you cannot count this member under the population of that same species for location L1. Right? Let's say ki this is dog 1 or dog 2. So if you are talking about the population of dog for location L1, you should not count this dog 2 because this dog is residing at different location. Right? So whenever we are talking about this particular term population, our entire discussion should be what? Location specific. Is it okay? So in so many different ecosystems, you will easily find the very presence of population of a particular species. And it may be possible that some different population of that same species can be found in some different ecosystem. The population of, let's say, the population of goat species in a particular forest of Bhubaneswar is, let's say, X. But it does not mean that population of goat cannot be noticed in some other location. It may be noticed. It may be possible that there would be some different population of goat species only for another, you can say, grassland of, let's say, Jaipur city. तो लेकिन अब लोकेशन जब आपने चेंज कर दिया तो अब उस लोकेशन के लिए आपका एक सेपरेट डिस्कशन होगा वहां की पॉपुलेशन के लिए, राइट? So these are the different levels of grouping. What we started from individual organism, then we arrived at species, population, and then fourth one is the stage of community. What community means? Please write down. Group of two or more than two species. Group of two or more than two species who have identical physical morphology, right? Only this criteria. That group should not be capable for interbreeding only by taking the parameter of morphology and some usual lifestyle. So if you will combine two or more than two species together, the larger group is treated as community, right? Now let's try to apply all these informations in this example. For the sake of your simplification, I took up that particular case. I am considering a forest ecosystem, let's say. And in forest ecosystem, I written few samples here. The number which I written here is about the number of organisms, right? The number of mango trees is 10 and similarly, right? Now you have to answer my question. You all must give this answer of this question. What is the number of individuals of mahogany tree? 10. It is a species of tree, mahogany, right? 10. What is the number of organisms of tiger species? Tiger? 10, right? So there are 10 different mango trees, and all these 10 different so-called mango trees have physical morphology, identical physical morphology, and they are capable for interbreeding. So by combining all these 10 trees, I picked up one term here, and that term is what? Mango tree. So this mango tree is the name of an species, right? Similarly, tiger, number of organisms is 10. And by combining all these 10 different organisms, I am considering one larger name here, tiger species, right? So all these different names represent different species, right? And if I ask you what is the population of parrot species? What is the population of parrot species? 10. Number of organisms of a particular species who are residing together at a given location, right? Okay. Now what I am doing here, I am going to form the larger group of two or more than two species who have almost common, you can say, physical morphology. Let's say this pink square consists two different species, right? And for this square, I can use another notion, tree. So that the term tree is not for a species, the term tree is for community, tree community. And tree community consists two species, and these two species have their own population. Is it okay for all of you? Yes. Similarly, this, which color it is? Batao jaldi, I am not expert of these different colors. Which color it is? Purple. Whatever it is. So this color, which is known as whatever, this color in consisting two different species, parrot and crow, and for this larger grouping I am using the notion, dekho, what? Bird. So the term bird is for community, right? Again, for this red grouping, I can use the notion of animal. So animal, bird, tree, these are the indicator of communities. Community consists two or more than two species. Is it okay? And when you will combine all communities with each other for a given location, combination of two or more than two communities form ecosystem, right? Form ecosystem. So last level of our grouping is what? Fifth is ecosystem. Now you have third definition of this term ecosystem. What is ecosystem? You can write group of two or more than two communities.
Sir, you have a break, short break.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Seriously studying, right? Okay, you can break for that.
No, I'm going to take that break within 5 minutes. Group of two or more than two communities form ecosystem. Right? Story does not end here. Again, listen me. Now what you have to do, just drop your pen and focus over that task. What I'm saying, you just need to consider, please be serious. You just need to consider a very huge biogeographical region. Very huge does not mean of 2 or 3 kilometers. Let's say very huge means I'm giving this particular clarity to all of you. This is, let's say, Earth, and I am considering the patch of 10 degree north to, let's say, 10 degree south. It is a very huge, you can say, biogeographical region. Bio means presence of biotic component, and geographical region because that is a geographical area. Within this very vast patch of biogeographical region, you can easily notice the presence of so many different ecosystems. 10 डिग्री नॉर्थ टू 10 डिग्री साउथ में आपको रिवर भी देखने को मिलेगी, फॉरेस्ट भी होगा, थोड़े बहुत कहीं ग्रासलैंड्स भी होंगे. These are different ecosystems. When you will combine all these ecosystems with each other, and it will form a very vast biogeographical area. This biogeographical area which is consisting two or more than two ecosystems is referred as what? Biome, right? And for biome we need to consider one parameter for considering a particular biome, because let's say I'm saying that you have to consider a very vast biogeographical area, so you feel the requirement of a parameter for this consideration, कि by considering which parameter I should think about that geographical area. So criteria of so-called biome is that there must be homogeneous climatic and vegetative conditions across that particular biogeographical area. मतलब कि जो climatic condition आपको इस corner पे देखने को मिल रही है, वही climatic condition आपको यहाँ पे भी देखने को मिले. Homogeneous conditions, right? So by considering this criteria of homogeneous climatic condition, you can consider any vast biogeographical area as a biome, and that biome would consist so many different types of ecosystem. So if you want, you can further extend that particular list, and your sixth stage would be of biome. Right now, a vast biogeographical area of biogeographical area of homogeneous climatic and vegetative condition, comma, which consist many ecosystems, full stop. Now you should write few examples of biome here, so that whenever you will read this content, you would be in condition to develop your clarity. First example is, and try to consider my name. Try to consider the name which I am going to pronounce here. Have you read geography? So, tropical rainforest. This name does not indicate ecosystem. Tropical rainforest means I am talking about biome. Similarly, savanna. Savanna means which type of grassland? Tropical grassland. Then again, I must say tundra, taiga, biome, etc. Is it okay? So it is all about, इसका मतलब ज्योग्राफी नहीं पढ़े हो, हाँ? टुंड्रा है कि क्या है, इसका मतलब there is problem, हाँ? TUNDRA, tundra biome. Tundra biome is having its presence at the latitude of 90° north and south, right? 65° to 90° north and south is the location of taiga biome, the Siberia or Russian region. This region consists the presence of taiga biome, right? This tundra biome is also known as cold desert. We use another notion for it, cold desert, right? So the Platonic discussion about these terms shall be taken up in your geography lecture. It is not my, I can say, duty. So it was the first manner of discussion regarding structure of biotic components of ecosystem. You should not forget the context of discussion. Ki what you are discussing, what you are reading. Here we are talking about structure of ecosystem, and within it we are talking about the structure of biotic components, right? Now we can talk about this structure of biotic components only, but on the basis of some different criteria now. Now what is that different criteria? That is the criteria of feeding behavior of biotic components. You all know that every biotic component demands certain quantum of energy for its own survival. And the very feeding behavior is that mechanism with the help of which biotic components fulfill their requirement of energy. Because with the help of feeding behavior, they used to consume different requirements, and all those different requirements are the source of energy. So how we can structurize entire biotic component of ecosystem on the basis of feeding behavior? Feeding behavior means I'm going to take up the case key, what is the manner of consuming energy of different biotic system? Because again I am saying, feeding is a process, right, to satisfy the requirement of what? Energy. So on the basis of this particular mechanism of consuming energy, we can classify all biotic components into two broader categories. And you all, I can say कि you all are familiar with these names which I am going to pronounce. First category is known as the category of autotrophs. And second category is the category of heterotrophs. Now, as far as autotrophs are concerned, biotic components are concerned. Now, what used to be the very manner of our discussion about autotrophs and heterotrophs in our schooling days? In schooling days, we used to, अभी भी मुझे वो definition याद है कि autotrophs जो अपना खाना खुद बनाते हैं, बस अब खाना खुद बनाते हैं तो now you are trying to appear for civil services examination, so you need to follow some sophisticated manner ना for presenting this layman type of information. तो देखिए बातें हम वही करने जा रहे हैं, बट उसको थोड़ा सा मैं और टेक्निकल फॉर्म में आपके सामने रखने की कोशिश करूंगा, so that things become much sophisticated and organized. Look, if you consider autotrophs as those biotic components who prepare their food without taking support of any other component, what it means? They are independent. They are independent of any other biotic component for satisfying their requirement of. अब मोबाइल चलाने का मतलब ब्रेक चाहिए फिर, है? किसका मोबाइल है यार? ये मेरे पे एहसान करना, सब कुछ मैं झेल लेता हूँ, बट प्लीज क्लास में ये मोबाइल ऑपरेट करना, ये सब चीजें, इट इज माई रिक्वेस्ट. आई एम नो वन टू डायरेक्ट यू because I know my limit. So I can only pursue you. I can only raise request to please don't operate mobile. What I was saying, कि autotrophs means those biotic components who are independent of any other biotic components. For which purpose? For which purpose? For satisfying their need of energy. Now, how autotrophs used to satisfy this requirement of energy for themselves? They have natural capacity. What? They have natural capacity to convert. I cannot use the notion that they have natural capacity to generate, because you all have this idea that energy cannot be created, cannot be destroyed. So you should be very, very aware while using terms, right? So they have capacity, natural capacity to convert inorganic form of energy which is present in our nature to organic form. Now, inorganic form of energy means what? You can define this term inorganic form in two different ways. Inorganic form of energy means that form of energy which does not contain hydrogen-carbon bond. Right? Carbon-hydrogen bond. This is a definition in context of chemistry. But if you try to present the very layman type of definition about this term inorganic, so inorganic form of energy means that form of energy which cannot be utilized by heterotrophs directly. Heterotrophs. Inorganic form of energy can be utilized only by whom? Autotrophs. Now, what is inorganic form of energy? That is nothing but sunlight. That is nothing but sunlight. These autotrophs has natural capacity to utilize that sunlight energy and convert it into other organic form. Now, what is that organic form of energy? It all happens through the process of photosynthesis. What is the end result of photosynthesis? Carbohydrate formation. Releasing of oxygen is the byproduct, na? But main product of photosynthesis is what? Formation of carbohydrate. Now, what is carbohydrate? Carbohydrate means, again, it is an organic compound. Compound means that element which consisting entity which consisting various element in some definite format. So carbohydrate means carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. They combine together in a definite format, and formation of carbohydrate took place. And this formation is taking place under the very phenomenon of photosynthesis. Who have capacity to conduct this phenomenon? Autotrophs, right? And for this phenomenon, they are utilizing that sunlight energy, which is inorganic form of energy. But when you talk about carbohydrate, what is carbohydrate? Carbohydrate is nothing but organic form of energy. It is organic form of energy. Now, if I am using that if I am considering that carbohydrate as the example of organic form of energy, try to appreciate this term, what it means. Organic form of energy means now this form of energy can be utilized by organic ka matlab it can be utilized by whom? Heterotrophs. And they do utilize it by feeding those green plants. Heterotrophs able to digest or utilize that carbohydrate within their own body. And carbohydrate means consisting carbon hydrogen bond. दोनों criteria satisfy हो रहा है ना? It means कि autotrophs has that character or has that capacity to convert inorganic form of energy into organic form. First definition. Second definition is what? How you can define autotrophs in bit sophisticated manner. These autotrophs are doing the crucial role or function, performing the crucial function of introducing the external energy into ecosystem. And they are introducing that energy for whom? They are introducing that energy into ecosystem for whom? For themselves also as well as for other heterotrophs component. बात मैंने वही की, थोड़ा सा बातों को कहने का लहजा मैंने क्या कर दिया, थोड़ा और बेहतर कर दिया, right? As we were talking about structure of biotic component of ecosystem, and in that context we took up all these terms and terminology, right? One thing with which you need to be very, very clear that you should memorize these terms in this order only. First stage is the stage of organism, then species, population, community, ecosystem and biome, right? So if I raise the statement that ecosystem is group of two or more than two species, would it be treated as correct statement or incorrect? Ecosystem is the group of two or more than two species. Is it correct or incorrect? Incorrect statement. Ecosystem is the group of two or more than two communities. It is the group of two or more than two species. Now again you should put heading. On the basis of mode of consuming energy or you can say feeding behavior. You should write it down, or feeding behavior. All biotic components can be divided into autotrophs and heterotrophs. Autotrophs are also known as producer And for heterotrophs, we can use another notion of consumer, producer, autotrophs, and heterotrophs, consumer. We should define these terms one by one. For autotrophs, please start writing. Those biotic components who have potential to convert inorganic form of energy in bracket sunlight to into sorry convert inorganic form of energy into organic form. Full stop. Autotrophs perform the crucial role of introducing required energy into ecosystem full stop. In full stop and continue. In terrestrial ecosystem, terrestrial means land-based, such as forest, grassland. They are example of terrestrial ecosystem. In terrestrial ecosystem, the role of autotroph is performed by green plants. Whereas in aquatic ecosystem, role of autotrophs is performed by phytoplankton. Phytoplankton is a specific type of aquatic vegetation, right? It is an aquatic vegetative species, I can say. And they usually found in photic zone of ocean, right? Photic zone means that zone up to which sunlight can penetrate, right? That zone of ocean is known as photic zone. And in photic zone also, the performance or the role of autotrophs is performed by these phytoplanktons. You can consider these phytoplanktons again as an example of green plant only, but they does not found in terrestrial ecosystem. They found in aquatic ecosystem, right? Okay. So, one more information you should write down. Since autotrophs are producing energy for themselves as well as other biotic components of ecosystem, that's why they are also known as producer. That's why they are also known as producer. Full stop. And continue, known as producer, full stop. In the process of photosynthesis, comma, green plants form carbohydrate, which is inorganic form of energy, carbohydrate which is inorganic form of energy, and is available for heterotrophs, component or heterotrophs elements. Look up here, by giving the reference of photosynthesis, I took up the very, I can say, the conception of carbohydrate, because it is the end result of photosynthesis. But it does not mean that carbohydrate is the only organic compound which is providing the you can say energy requirement for other heterotroph components. There are so many other natural processes performed by these autotrophs only, with the help of which they use to introduce various organic compounds for heterotrophs. One process is the process of photosynthesis, which is very popular. But apart from photosynthesis, these autotrophs are engaged in various other natural processes, and through those processes also they used to introduce many other types of organic compounds for heterotrophs, such as, if I take another example, we will talk about it, that is the concept of nitrogen cycle, right? So in nitrogen cycle we will talk about the process of various plant-based bacteria which actually convert atmospheric nitrogen into nitrate, and these green plants used to assimilate that nitrate and convert it into amino acid. That amino acid is another example of organic compound. This amino acid is commonly known as protein, right? So all these different organic compounds are what? They are the source of energy for heterotrophs. And heterotrophs does not have capacity to convert inorganic form of energy into its organic form. This potential of conversion is only discussed for whom? Autotrophs, not for heterotrophs, right? Now we should talk about heterotrophs. Put heading heterotrophs. These biotic components does not have capacity to fulfill or satisfy the requirement of energy without taking support of other biotic components. Full stop. They are actually dependent upon, full stop and continue, they are actually dependent upon other biotic components, for requirement of energy, full stop. They have capacity to utilize or digest they have capacity to utilize or digest organic form of energy such as carbohydrate, amino acid, etc., etc. Full stop. By feeding other biotic components, by feeding other biotic components, by feeding other biotic components, comma, heterotrophs satisfy the requirement of energy. Heterotrophs satisfy the requirement of energy for themselves. Full stop. Full stop and continue. By looking at feeding behavior of heterotrophs component, we can classify them as herbivore. Now I should not explain these terms. I am expecting you have idea about it. Herbivore means who feed upon green plants. If you want, you can write this information in bullet form under bracket. Herbivore who feed upon green plants, comma, carnivore who feed upon herbivore, then कॉमा करके लिखते जाना. नेक्स्ट टॉप कार्निवोर who can feed other carnivore as well as herbivore, and decomposer or detrivore. Last term is and decomposer or detrivore. Feed upon dead living components. Look, I should suggest few examples of these terms also for your simplification. You can consider so many examples of herbivore, rabbit, goat, these all are example of herbivore. Carnivore means, let's say, snake is an example of carnivore. Top carnivore means those who can feed upon other carnivore as well as herbivore. So for example, if here you can take up the case of lion, tiger. So they have capacity, or it is their usual habit to feed other carnivore as well as any other herbivore. So this is the character of top carnivore. You may got confused here because in our schooling days we used to talk about omnivore also, who have capacity to feed upon green plants as well as herbivore. But now we are at this stage of our, I can say, discussion where we should have a very clear understanding about this term omnivore. Actually, omnivore is not a particular stage of this particular structuring, because omnivore term we are using for that biotic component who have capacity to perform the role of carnivore as well as herbivore. This is the case of omnivore, na? If a given omnivore is, let's say, feeding any green plant, so at that moment given omnivore is performing the role of herbivore, and if that same omnivore is actually feeding any, let's say, other herbivore, so at that moment the given omnivore is performing the role of carnivore. तो एक पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम पे वो इन दोनों में से कोई एक रोल परफॉर्म कर रहा होगा. तो हमने एक जनरलाइज डिस्कशन के लिए ये टर्म यूज कर लिया ओमनीवोर, बट एक्चुअली इट इज नॉट अ स्टेज ऑफ दिस स्ट्रक्चरिंग, राइट? सो एज फार एज दिस स्टेज, डिफरेंट स्टेजेस ऑफ heterotrophs component are concerned, you can start with herbivore, then carnivore, top carnivore, and decomposer or detrivore. Now again I should provide a very elaborate discussion about these two terms, decomposer or detrivore, what it means. Look, this term decomposer is actually, I should switch over at next page. The term decomposer is actually derived from another conception of, it is name of a process known as decomposition. What? Decomposition. So decomposer means those biotic components, they are actually heterotrophs, who have capacity to perform the function of decomposition. Now what decomposition is? So decomposition is the process, it is the process to convert complex organic compound into their simple form. Now these organic compounds are actually present within body of whom? Living components. They may be autotrophs, they may be heterotrophs. And recently I gave example of these organic compounds: amino acid, carbohydrate. So amino acid or carbohydrate are what? They are complex organic compound, because if you look at the very chemical formula of carbohydrate or amino acid, what you will notice, there is a very complex combination of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen in carbohydrate, and carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen in amino acid. So decomposition of these compound is nothing but the process to convert this compound into its simple form. So simple form means what? कार्बोहाइड्रेट में से CO2 अलग से रिलीज होकर वो एटमॉस्फेयर में चली जाएगी, बचा हुआ जो नाइट्रोजन है वो भी नाइट्रोजन गैस के फॉर्म में रिलीज बैक होगा एटमॉस्फेयर में। हुआ क्या, एक कॉम्प्लेक्स जो कंपाउंड है वो अपने सिंपल फॉर्म में कन्वर्ट हो गया। ये कन्वर्जन की कैपेसिटी जिस बायोटिक कंपोनेंट में होती है, इट इज नोन एज डीकंपोजर, राइट? ओके, नाउ दिस कैपेसिटी ऑफ डीकंपोजिशन is usually found in case of various bacteria and other insects such as, let's say, millipedes and so many other insects. They have capacity to decompose and they perform the function of decomposition of what? Decomposition of these organic matters. And when their process of decomposition starts, when after death of living components, decomposition of present organic compounds is started by these composers, right? But what is the case of detrivore? Detrivore are those biotic components who also perform the function of decomposition. But how? By feeding and by consuming present organic compound of a dead biotic component. जो decomposer है, thin line difference है समझना। Bacteria and millipedes does not feed, does not consume dead organic matter और dead biotic compound, वो feed नहीं करते, वो कुछ एंजाइम्स सेक्रेट करते हैं जिससे कि वो डिकम्पोजिशन डेड बॉडी का हो जाता है विदाउट कंज्यूमिंग दैट डेड बॉडी। बट व्हेन यू टॉक अबाउट दी डेट्रीवोरस, they also perform decomposition, but how? Not by secreting those enzymes, but by consuming that dead body. और उस डेड बॉडी को कंज्यूम फीड करके उनके फिजिकल बॉडी में वो कैपेसिटी होती है कि वो ऑर्गेनिक कंपाउंड का क्या करते हैं, डीकंपोजिशन करते हैं। डिफरेंस समझ में आया? सो बोथ डेट्रीवोर एज वेल एज डीकंपोजर, they are actually dependent upon what is their source of energy. Dead, you can say living component, right? And that dead living component may be autotroph and it may be heterotroph, right? So it is all about, you can say, categorization of all heterotrophs component. I should suggest कि you need to write the explanatory statement about decomposer and detrivore. You should write it down. Decomposer are those heterotrophs who perform not perform, who facilitate, ऐसे देखो, who facilitate the process of decomposition, who facilitate the process of decomposition of complex organic compounds present within body of organic compounds present within body of dead biotic component, present within body of dead biotic component, full stop. wait, bacterias, millipedes, earthworm, bacterias, comma, millipedes, earthworm are example of decomposer, are example of decomposer. They perform, full stop and continue. They facilitate the process of decomposition. They facilitate the process of decomposition without feeding dead without feeding dead body full stop. Now from next line, as far as detrivore biotic components are concerned, comma, they also present they also present they also facilitate, extremely sorry, they also facilitate the process of decomposition. They also facilitate the process of decomposition of dead body, decomposition of dead body, but by consuming or feeding it, but by consuming or feeding it. If you want to write few examples of detrivore, so vulture is the very important example of detrivore. Vulture. Is it okay? So this particular classification is of heterotrophs, and I can say narrow down the very size of this diagram so that you can draw it. Here is producer. Please draw this diagram. Producer or autotrophs. Then herbivore or herbivore or primary consumer, herbivore or primary consumer, then carnivore or secondary consumer, top carnivore, and then detrivore or decomposer. These top carnivore are also known as tertiary consumer. Look, you should not write this content just for discussion. Look, the ultimate requirement of any biotic component is the requirement of what? Energy. But energy is invisible. एनर्जी तो ऐसी चीज है नहीं जिसका कोई फिजिकल प्रेजेंस है जो दिखती हो. So what is the real source with the help of which any biotic component fulfill the requirement of energy? So that real medium through which biotic components fulfill their requirement of energy is nothing but different what? Different types of nutrients, such as carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. These are different nutrients, and these nutrients are that medium with the help of which requirement of energy is being satisfied. अब जैसे कि मैंने कहा कार्बोहाइड्रेट, तो कार्बोहाइड्रेट क्या है? कार्बन, हाइड्रोजन, ऑक्सीजन का ही तो ग्रुप है ना, या कॉम्बिनेशन है. तो आप अगर कार्बोहाइड्रेट की बात कर रहे हो, इट मींस आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट combination, required combination of different nutrients, right? And what is the medium to fulfill the requirement of these different nutrients? The medium with the help of which any living entity try to fulfill the requirement of nutrients is nothing but different types of food resources. Satisfy? Rice, pulse, fruits, these are different types of food resources, and by consuming them we try to satisfy the requirement of nutrients, and through nutrients we use to satisfy the requirement of energy, right? So how these different food resources used to, you can say, transfer across all biotic components of, you can say, an ecosystem. So transfer of these food resources across all, I can say, biotic component actually happens with the help of one natural activity of those biotic components, and that natural activity is what? They are feeding behavior. Who have capacity to feed upon which resource, and through this particular process, movement, or you can say expansion or transfer of food resource takes place across biotic components, and through transfer of food resources requirement of nutrients used to be satisfied, and through nutrients the ultimate requirement of energy used to be satisfied. So the very diagram which you recently plot is actually representation of the manner of transfer. The manner of transfer of what? Now it is up to you ki which term you are using. The manner or the mechanism or the mode of transfer of, you can use the notion of either food resource, or you can say ki transfer of nutrients, or you can say the transfer of energy. It is up to you. So this diagram represent, or you can say it is a linear representation of manner or mode of transfer of food resource or nutrient or energy across, or you can say among different biotic components of ecosystem. And this linear representation is popularly known as what? Food chain. So what is food chain? I defined that term. Food chain is nothing but the linear representation of the manner or mode of transfer of. अब इसमें कुछ भी रटने वाली चीज नहीं है, मैं आपको ऑप्शन देते हुए चल रहा हूं, जो भी टर्म आपको सुटेबल लगे यू कैन यूज इट. ट्रांसफर ऑफ फूड रिसोर्स और न्यूट्रिएंट और एनर्जी among different biotic components of ecosystem. So please write down above mentioned above diagram. You should write like this. Above diagram is a linear representation of the manner of transfer of food resources, oblique nutrients, oblique energy among biotic components of ecosystem. Full stop. This linear representation is popularly known as food chain. Right? Full stop. Continue in same paragraph. Food chain. Different stages of food chain are known as trophic level. Different stages of food chain are known as trophic level. TROPHIC, trophic level. So trophic level means what? Now you need to internalize these terms of first lecture, because all these terms shall be taken by me very repeatedly in my forthcoming lectures. So बार बार मैं definition तो अब बताऊंगा नहीं. So trophic level means what? Different stages of food chain. Stages means what? Autotroph is the primary and most fundamental stage of food chain is the stage of autotrophs. You have to memorize in this same manner only. After autotrophs, there is the stage of herbivore or primary consumer. Then carnivore, top carnivore, and uppermost trophic level is of detrivore, right? It is all about food chain and related concept of trophic level. Now, you should be familiar about some related information here. Now, if I if I try to investigate this dimension, is it possible that a particular biotic component would be member of two different ecosystems? Is it possible? Is it possible that a particular biotic component can be member of two different trophic levels? Two different trophic levels of ecosystem. Is it possible? Exactly, yes. Recently I given the concept of omnivore. So omnivore are the member of primary consumer trophic level as well as carnivore trophic level. Similarly, vulture. Vulture can be member of top carnivore, secondary consumer, or tertiary. It can be member of carnivore, it can be member of top carnivore, and it can be member of detrivore. अब अगर वो vulture किसी चलते हुए रैबिट को फीड कर रहा है, it means कि at that moment that vulture is the player of which trophic level? Carnivore. If that vulture is feeding a snake, living snake, matlab that snake is live. So at that moment we would say कि that vulture is the member of top carnivore trophic level. And if that same vulture is feeding a dead body, then the vulture would be considered as the part of detrivore. So you should be very, very clear in your thought. You can write it down. With this proper heading of note, please write down this information. It is possible that a particular biotic component can be member of two or more than two trophic levels. And I am leaving it to you. You just need to write down the very example of vulture which I given. You just need to left that space of around 2 to 3 lines. You need to write this example of vulture. When that vulture would feed rabbit, will be considered as the part of carnivore. When that same vulture will feed snake, will be considered as the part of top carnivore. When that same vulture will feed any dead body, now that time it will be considered as the part of detrivore trophic level. लिख लोगे ना खुद से? Okay. Now at this time only we should talk about two different types of ecosystem. This discussion is a very theoretical and a very ideal type of discussion which I am going to present before you. You can put heading types of food chain. Types of food chain and types of food chain. One is grazing food chain. Grazing food chain. And what it is, please write down. It starts with autotrophs. It starts with autotrophs. What is example? Let's say mango tree, then rabbit, then snake, then let's say vulture, bacteria. So grazing food chain starts with what? Autotrophs, right? And autotrophs means I'm talking about green plants. For terrestrial ecosystem, autotroph does not only mean green plants. Green plant perform the role of autotrophs only in terrestrial ecosystem. But when you talk about aquatic ecosystem, how this particular grazing food chain looks like? Here I am considering this grazing food chain for aquatic ecosystem. This was for it. This food chain was for which? Terrestrial ecosystem. This grazing food chain was for terrestrial ecosystem. Now I am presenting grazing food chain only, but for aquatic ecosystem. So as you written, that role of autotrophs in aquatic ecosystem is performed by what? Phytoplanktons. How many have read geography? No one? डरो नहीं बताओ. Don't be scared. अच्छा. So in oceanography, there is a very normal discussion about planktons and nectons. Have you read about these dimensions, planktons and nectons? All marine organisms, right? They are divided in two broader categories, necton and planktons. Nectons means those marine organisms or aquatic organisms who have capacity to swim against the direction of ocean current. Against the direction of ocean current means dolphin is the example of necton, shark is the example of necton, and few other marine organisms does not have this capacity to swim against the direction of oceanic current. What it means? Their movement is in the direction of ocean current. They are known as plankton, right? So this is the term phytoplankton, right? Phytoplankton is a type of plant, green plants found in marine or aquatic ecosystem, and these phytoplanktons are fed upon by zooplanktons. They are very small organisms who actually feed these phytoplanktons. Zooplanktons. Zooplanktons are fed upon by small fishes. For example, herrings. And small fishes are fed by let's say shark. This is grazing food chain for aquatic ecosystem. One very interesting information I am presenting here, but you should not write it down. In the entire discussion of ecology, and ecology means nothing but discussion of ecosystem. What is ecology? Ecology is nothing but study of ecosystem, right? The whatever content which we are discussing is nothing but the part of ecology. In ecology related discussion, we does not found the much discussion about desert ecosystem. Whenever we have to make any analysis about ecosystem, so we divide those ecosystem in two parts, aquatic and terrestrial. In the name of terrestrial ecosystem, our usual focus is upon either forest or grassland. And as far as aquatic ecosystem, our usual focus is upon marine ecosystem or river ecosystem. You cannot find the very plutonic or a very depth analysis which has been done for desert type of ecosystem. Can you answer my question? Why so? And this question does not demand information. Answer of this question can be given by using your common sense. Extreme living condition. Try to extend this view a bit more. So extreme living condition would create which type of problem for that ecosystem? That extreme condition would restrict the variety in life forms. And if there would not be presence of decent life form in a given ecosystem, would it be possible for us to conduct such type of analysis? अगर मेरा ये पर्पस है कि हाउ स्टूडेंट्स आर इंटरेक्टिंग विद फैकल्टी, ये हमारा एक मान लो टास्क है, और इस टास्क और ये ऑब्जर्वेशन करने के लिए मैं आपको एक ऐसे क्लासरूम में भेज दूं जहां पे केवल एक स्टूडेंट है और कहने के लिए फैकल्टी कभी आ रहा है जा रहा है, तो क्या आप ये एनालिसिस या ये ऑब्जर्वेशन सही से कर पाओगे? लेकिन तो इसका मतलब कि ये एनालिसिस करने के लिए जरूरी है कि आपको एक ऐसा सैंपल मिले, एक ऐसा क्लासरूम मिले जहां पे स्टूडेंट्स की स्ट्रेंथ भी हो, फैकल्टी का भी प्रेजेंस, ताकि आप वो मैनर ऑफ इंटरेक्शन इजीली ऑब्जर्व कर सको. When we are talking about ecosystem, desert ecosystem is a very simple ecosystem. Why simple ecosystem? As she said, due to extremeness of conditions. And since that desert ecosystem is a very simple ecosystem, it is not possible to locate the presence of multiple types of biotic component there. So it is not possible for us to conduct a very decent observation for desert ecosystem. That's why in ecology related discussion, we very rarely found any reference or example of desert ecosystem for justifying any concept. बार बार मैं डिस्कशन में फॉरेस्ट या एक्वेटिक इकोसिस्टम का ही रेफरेंस लूंगा, इसीलिए. ठीक है? Okay. So it was about grazing food chain. Now second type of food chain is known as detritus food chain. Detritus food chain. Detritus food chain. And what you should write, it actually start with dead living component now I'm presenting one example of detritus food chain here. Have you written the definition of detritus food chain? It starts with dead biotic component. For example, those shaded leaves are treated as dead leaves. Dead leaves of a tree. They decomposed by different bacterias. These bacterias are fed upon by, let's say, earthworm. It is fed by birds. These birds are fed upon by, let's say, I can say snake. Snake. And again you can further extend this chain. This snake would be fed. This snake would be fed by any top carnivore, right? So here you are noticing कि detritus food chain actually starts with dead biotic components, body of dead biotic components. Now from next line you should write one statement. It should be noted that these two different types of food chain does not exist in isolation of each other, rather they are integrated. Isolation of each other, rather they are integrated. Full stop. Only for the purpose of analysis, we are discussing them in separate manner. We are discussing these two concepts. ऐसे लिखो, we are only for the purpose of analysis, we are discussing these two concepts in separate manner. We are discussing these two concepts in separate manner. समझ पा रहे हो उसका क्या मतलब है? ऐसा नहीं है कि आपको ये अलग अलग फूड चेन ऑपरेट होते हुए दिखेंगी कि ग्रेजिंग का डेट्रिटस से कोई लेना देना नहीं है. All these activities of feeding behavior of biotic components is actually performed in a very continuous manner, and these activities, these feeding behavior activities of different biotic components are actually integrated with each other in continuous form. There is a green plant fed by herbivore, herbivore is fed by carnivore, top carnivore, dead organic material is decomposed by, let's say, decomposer. तो ये सारी चीजें इकोसिस्टम में एक साथ परफॉर्म हो रही है. केवल हमने अपने ऑब्जर्वेशन के लिए इन एक्टिविटीज को सेपरेट कर दिया. And we framed the concept of two types of food chain, namely detritus and what? Grazing food chain. Now, another information related to food chain. In any mature ecosystem, look, mature ecosystem means what? Mature ecosystem or developed ecosystem means that ecosystem where variety of life form exists. Variety of life form means what? So many different types of biotic component present in a very decent strength. That is the character of mature ecosystem. And if we are treating a particular ecosystem as a simple or plain ecosystem, what it means? The variety is not in decent manner. Number as well as variety of biotic component is at its very minimum level in that given ecosystem. So that is the case of simple or plain ecosystem. But here I am talking about a mature ecosystem, because recently I clarified my position that study of ecology is not possible for simple or plain ecosystem, because survival of any plain ecosystem is not possible for a very long term, right? That's why any concept related to ecology needs to be justified by taking the reference of a mature ecosystem. So when you try to look any mature ecosystem, within that mature ecosystem you can easily notice the presence of many food chains. So many food chains. So many food chains means what? Let's say this is a mango tree. This is people tree. I'm talking about a forest ecosystem. This mango tree is actually fed by, let's say, goat. Then wolf, then let's say lion. This people tree is, let's say, fed by rabbit, then again snake, then vulture. So ऐसा नहीं है कि ये सारे फूड चेन एक दूसरे के आइसोलेशन में परफॉर्म करेंगे, नहीं. There is presence of multiple such food chains in any ecosystem, and very interesting information, all these food chains are integrated with each other through a particular trophic label. It means that it is very possible that this same rabbit will also feed mango tree. This rabbit is also available for wolf, right? So what is happening here? All these food chains are integrated with each other, and integration of these food chains, integration of all these food chains with each other form a very complex network. Network of what? Network of food chains, and this network of food chain is known as food web, right? So what is the reality? What is the reality of an ecosystem? Food chain or food web? Food web is the reality. Food chain is just a theoretical concept which has its, you can say, existence only in books. When we talk about any ecosystem in practical manner, in ecosystem we can notice the presence of food web instead of food chain, right? Write it down. In a mature ecosystem, comma, there is presence of numerous number of food chains and all these food chains used to integrate with all these food chains are integrated with each other. All these food chains are integrated with each other, and form the complex network, comma, which is known as food web. Complex network which is known as food web. So it was all about the very first character of an ecosystem, that is structure. Till now we were making discussion about a structure of ecosystem. Now you have ample of information to elaborate that term, ki what structure means, right? Now we should initiate our discussion about second fundamental character of ecosystem, and second fundamental character is of what? function, as we written that every ecosystem is a functional unit. So although there is operation of so many different types of functions of biotic components in any given ecosystem, but we need to talk about those two functions due to which any ecosystem actually survive. If either of these two functions would be, you can say, would be terminated, survival of that entire ecosystem would come into question mark. That's why whenever you have to talk about functions of ecosystem, you should not forget to talk about these two functions. And what are these two functions? First one is transfer of energy. Transfer of energy among biotic components. Now we should use another term, because in our discussion regarding structure of biotic component, I structured all biotic components in form of 5 different trophic levels. Yes or not? So instead of saying among biotic components, now I can use another phrase. What? Transfer of nutrient across trophic levels. ऐसा भी कह सकता हूं अब मैं, right? And second key function which we have to discuss is transfer of energy across trophic levels of ecosystem. But very interestingly, both these two functions are related with each other, because very recently I clarified that dimension कि nutrient is the medium to satisfy the requirement of what? Energy. That's why I am saying कि transfer of energy function and transfer of nutrient function, these two topics are very close of each other, right? So I'm please put heading functions of ecosystem and write down although there is execution of so many functions, within ecosystem, but following two functions are very crucial to support the survival of entire ecosystem. Very crucial to support the survival of an ecosystem, and they are first function, transfer of energy across different trophic levels, transfer of energy across different trophic levels of ecosystem, and second transfer of nutrient across different trophic levels. Now please drop your pen and just listen me first. Look, in order to ensure the smooth execution of both these functions, various biotic components go for interaction with other biotic and abiotic components of ecosystem. I recently said कि although there is execution of so many functions in an ecosystem, but we need not to talk about every function because rest other functions are secondary function. Two most primary function of ecosystem are these two functions, and primary function means what? It is due to these two functions that survival of ecosystem would become possible. मतलब मैं कैसी बात कर रहा हूं? Let's say कि this classroom is an ecosystem, and in this classroom we can easily trace out execution of so many different functions performed by us, means biotic component. Talking, walking, having conversation with anyone with phone with the help of phone. All these are functions. Drinking water, let's say कि someone is drinking water. And another function is what? Discussion of ecology. Now try to imagine कि which function should be considered as primary function for this classroom. इसको क्लासरूम क्यों कह रहे हैं कि आप यहाँ पे केवल आके बैठ रहे हो, आपस में बात कर रहे हो, इसलिए ये क्लासरूम कहला रहा है. ये क्लासरूम इसलिए कहला रहा है because here we are making discussion of this subject. बट फंक्शंस तो और भी सारे हो रहे हैं. कुछ ऐसे ही बात मैं यहाँ पे कर रहा हूँ कि इकोसिस्टम में कहने को तो बहुत सारे फंक्शंस हो रहे होते हैं बाय एंड ऑल दोज फंक्शंस यूज्ड टू बी परफॉर्म बाय बायोटिक कंपोनेंट्स. व्हाई दे परफॉर्म दोज फंक्शंस? इन ऑर्डर टू एंश्योर देयर ओन सर्वाइवल. बट ये जो दो ऐसे फंक्शन हैं, ये पूरे इकोसिस्टम के सर्वाइवल को क्या करते हैं? गवर्न करते हैं, गाइड करते हैं. दैट्स व्हाई दीज आर टू मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट फंक्शन. Now, another dimension I'd like to present here. In all these different functions, as I said, biotic components used to interact with other abiotic and biotic components of that given ecosystem. This information actually guides us that it is essential to ensure the survival or presence of biotic and abiotic components in a given ecosystem. If there is a given sample and in that given sample we are noticing the presence of only abiotic component, that sample would not be treated as ecosystem. बताया था ना? Now, can you imagine the very reverse statement? Is it possible that in a given sample there is presence of only biotic component, and due to presence of those biotic components, should we consider that given sample as an example of ecosystem? अभी भी नहीं. Why not? Let's say there is a given sample space, and in that given sample there is presence of only biotic component. So would you consider that sample as an example of ecosystem? No. इसको कहते हैं प्रोबेबली तुम लोगों की जनरेशन तो शायद क्या पता वो फेज नहीं देखी होगी, when we were in our schooling days, there was a telecast, there was a very popular serial, and we were very fond of that Shaktiman. देखे देखे okay. So at the very last moment of that serial, there was telecasting of one smaller episode, छोटी मगर मोटी बातें, and they used to share various valuable informations for common public. So all these questions are like those छोटी मगर मोटी बातें, कि ये सभी questions जो मैं आपके सामने अभी रेज कर रहा हूँ, this is the art of UPSC. UPSC never ask question of very platonic knowledge. Never. Not at all. UPSC only demand the churning of your mind about basic informations of different, I can say, subjects. Can you imagine the presence of biotic component at a given location without any presence of abiotic component? Impossible. Because यही तो abiotic component वो condition तैयार करते हैं जिसकी वजह से biotic components का survival possible हो पाता है. तो ये तो मतलब out of imagination वाली बात हो गई कि किसी सैंपल में abiotic component है ही नहीं और biotic component पाए जा रहे हैं. It is completely immature and you can say completely senseless statement, right? इसका reverse possible है. Reverse means what? It is possible to notify a particular sample where there is presence of only abiotic component but no any presence of biotic component. It is possible, and recently I provided that particular example. But you should not imagine, and you cannot imagine the case where we are noticing the presence of biotic component without any abiotic component. Impossible at all, right? अब होता क्या है कि ये abiotic components अपनी condition के मुताबिक, whatever is their condition means whether they are present in extreme condition or moderate condition. If condition of these abiotic component would be extreme, scope of survival for biotic component would be very minimum. The same justification can be given for desert ecosystem. And when the condition of these abiotic component would be moderate, it support the life of so many different types of biotic component. This justification can be given for tropical rainforest. For tropical rainforest, go and try to, I can say, investigate the condition of abiotic components there. Moderate temperature throughout the year. You will read about it in your climatology. Moderate rainfall throughout the year, fertile soil. This is all about moderate condition, which is supportive for variety of life form. So whatever function we are going to discuss, function is actually facilitated by the process of interaction, and interaction of biotic component with other biotic and abiotic component. What these two functions are, as written, first function is the transfer of energy. We all know that if we forget some exceptional ecosystem, such as one exceptional ecosystem is the deep ocean ecosystem. In deep ocean is not the example of photic zone. No, because sunlight cannot penetrate up to that level. So whatever ecosystem you can say present in deep ocean, that particular ecosystem actually satisfies its own energy requirement by taking the help of nutrients dissolve in oceanic water, chemicals, right? And the very process which governs the introduction of energy into ecosystem of deep ocean, that process is known as chemosynthesis. And for normal terrestrial ecosystem, which process governs introduction of energy? Photosynthesis. Photo means sunlight. Chemosynthesis, here chemo means what? Chemicals dissolved in oceanic water. They are the source of energy for those ecosystems which are present in deep ocean, right? So but this is not the usual case. Ecosystem of deep ocean is not the usual case. Common type of ecosystems are actually dependent upon what? Sunlight for the requirement of their energy. So how energy got introduced into ecosystem? The energy is introducing into ecosystem at which trophic level? Now you have to answer me. You have to answer me. Energy is being introduced within ecosystem at which trophic level? At which trophic level? Producer. Under which process? Under which process? Photosynthesis. Right? Now what is happening? That energy actually transformed, or I can say the form of that introduced energy changed from inorganic to organic form. And now that organic form of energy, which is available at which trophic level? Autotrophs. That organic form of energy which is available till now at autotrophs level will start transferring across other trophic levels. But how this transfer took place? Through feeding behavior of whom? Heterotrophs. When herbivore will feed upon green plant, so carbohydrate which present within green plant body will transfer from herbivore from green plant to into the body of herbivore. When that herbivore will be fed by carnivore, that carbohydrate is nothing but form of energy, organic form of energy. That energy actually got transferred from herbivore to carnivore trophic level and so on. So what happens? Initially energy was introduced by autotrophs, and then that introduced energy start transferring across different trophic level, and this transfer of energy is guided by the natural activity of feeding behavior of heterotrophs, right? And as you all know that we cannot create energy, neither energy can neither be created nor be destroyed. We can only change the form of energy. So in the very process of that transfer of energy, we should also be cautious about one information, that this transfer of energy is not an 100% efficient process. No. What it means? The quantity of energy available at autotrophs trophic level would be much higher than the quantum of energy available at herbivore. Quantum of energy available at herbivore trophic level would be much higher than quantum of energy available at carnivore. I mean to say, as you move from most fundamental to most, you can say top level, top trophic level, the availability, quantum of availability energy, available energy actually reduces. And that action of energy with respect to successive trophic level is guided by one law that is known as 10% law of energy. This law says that the quantum of energy available at a particular trophic level, listen me very, very carefully, the quantum of energy available at a particular trophic level is just 10% of quantum of energy which was available at its preceding trophic level. यानी कि 100 कैलोरी एनर्जी अगर है ग्रीन प्लांट के ट्रॉफिक लेवल पे, तो इफ यू गो बाय दिस थ्योरी, हाउ मच एनर्जी शुड बी देयर एट हर्बीवोर ट्रॉफिक लेवल? 10 कैलोरी. नाउ हाउ मच एनर्जी शुड बी देयर एट कार्निवोर? 1 calorie. Then at upper trophic level 0.1. Now 0.1 means what? Whatever was the quantum of energy which was introduced in ecosystem, all that introduced energy has been dissipated at last trophic level. And dissipated means what? Try to trace the very journey of this energy transfer. Journey of this energy transfer is like energy starts its journey from its source. It actually introduced within ecosystem, and this energy completely dissipates at last trophic level. It means that this journey of energy transfer is terminating at this point. And termination of this journey means what? We can say कि nature of energy transfer within ecosystem is of which nature? Acyclic. साइक्लिक टर्म हम कब यूज करते? जब यही एनर्जी फिर से रिवर्ट बैक होके अपने ओरिजिनल रिजर्व में चली जाती है, तब हम कहते हैं कि साइक्लिक है. बट इट इज नॉट द केस. व्हाई इट इज नॉट द केस? यू हैव टू आंसर दैट 10% लॉ ऑफ एनर्जी, राइट? सो माय मैसेज फॉर ऑल ऑफ यू is that you should not forget this information about energy transfer. What is the nature of energy transfer in ecosystem? Acyclic, right? अभी लिख लें या कल लिखें? 6:35. कल. चलो 10% law of energy is following here. So remind me tomorrow. We will start from this topic only. Thank you.